Hello, and welcome to Chapter 2 of The Oath. I hope that you enjoy the first chapter of introductions to who you'll be meeting throughout the story. I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy. 오늘의 날씨 일기예보는 맑음 햇살 밝은 오후 무작정 어딘가 향하는 발걸음 너와 자주 걷던 거리 어쩌면 너무 익숙해져 버린 습관과 같던 매일 너랑 기억에 갇혀 살아 하염없이 비가 내려 두 뼘 위로 이렇게 맑은데 Ge. Growing up, I never had much when it came to family. My father was an opium addict who lay in bed all day, his hands completely blackened by the color of the opium and his face aged more than his 40 years of life. He didn't garden or care to work to get his belly fed. He lay in bed, yelling at me to maintain a life for him when he was the adult of the family. My mother died when I was young, and I never really knew what love was. The only person who showed me what that kind of affection could possibly mean was Ge. He wasn't all that bad once you got to know him. He had his own demons to fight with, and I couldn't even offer him my shoulder since I was so broken myself. I knew a part of me would always envy him because he had everything I wanted. The maidens in town preferred him over me, yet tolerated me because Ge was my friend. I was given a friend to speak with while Ge had the star of the show on his arm, but I didn't mind because I had little to say anyways. I didn't always know how to cook a good story like him to make the girls fall in love with me. That was until I met Dee and May, who became like the two very gems missing in my life. May was like the sister I never had. She was easygoing, easy to please, and spoke what needed to be said and left it at that. She was weak and a lot of her body strength, so could never carry anything more than a basket of wood. She often bruised easily too, if any time we accidentally ran into her too hard, it showed up on her skin the next day. Her parents were a lot younger than mine, and she had more freedom. She was the youngest daughter too, so she got away with more. She was also like me in a lot of ways, since Dee was like Ge. Dee outshined May in everything from looks to personality to words spoken to elegance. Dee was a woman of my dreams, and the woman who I wanted on my arm to bring home. But I had taken an oath to never seek her out as a companion, and only as a friend. My thoughts were, however, secluded and sealed from anyone to guess. I never wanted anyone to know how I felt about her. I would think of her name, and immediately my entire body would feel warm, gushed with the thought of exchanging bodily fluids. It was that intense. And when she was near me, I forgot the words I needed to say, but the oath kept me in my place. On that day, I did it because I didn't want anyone to hate me. I still cared about Ge's thoughts about me as a friend, and I knew inside of him he also felt the same way about Dee. It was his way to protect himself from wanting more to do with her than needed to. The morning we were woken up, getting ready to head to her house before sunrise, I packed what I had and made my way to Ge's house. He was up, dressed in black pants and a white button-down shirt. I simply just put together a pair of black pants and an old t-shirt I found that didn't smell too bad. Ge took one look at me and mumbled something. He disappeared back into his home and returned tossing me a red button-down shirt. Nào nó, lô tưng ba cả nãy có nhớ rồng thay đổi để các tôi có sự. I pulled on the shirt he gave me and smiled. Con chọn bố của kẻ, của tôi chỉ tôi không lá nó mà. He shook his head as he threw an arm over my shoulder, and we walked toward Dee's house. The sun was just about rising over the horizon as we reached the front of her door. May was standing there wearing a green tribal shirt and a plain black skirt. A black bag hung over her shoulder as she waved to us, and I returned her smile. Just then, Dee came out of the house wearing the same exact outfit as May, and my heart stopped. It looked exactly like May's, but somehow on Dee, it looked so much better. Vua, did you know what me and Zaina lo? Ge asked as he crossed his arms looking from one to the other. Oh, vì yêu shilu hành nè. Từ cả nè chỉ sợ shilu li ư là bỏ. Dee answered with a huge grin on her face. Muốn kia chơi trở nhà tao kể đi blossom mong thia. We started out walking ahead of them, and the sun rose, warming the atmosphere around us. Pretty soon, I ended up taking the button-down shirt I had worn earlier from the heat. Ya gave me a funny glare as he fanned himself but kept his shirt on. After 4 hours of walking, we reached the bus station that would take us to Vinh. When we were climbing on the bus, Dee nearly fell backward, and I caught her, my hand placed on her bottom, feeling the curve of her buttocks as she yelped, and May pulled her hand up. She turned to glare at me and made a face as the two hurried along to sit in the corner of the vehicle. We arrived in Vinh around noon, and that was when I saw Dee's cousin for the first time. He was a very handsome, tall man with short black hair and clear blue eyes. I had never seen an Asian man with blue eyes before, and it shocked me as he welcomed Dee by embracing her and lifting her off the ground. Then he surprised us all by pecking her cheek. Dee blushed and slapped his arm playfully as she turned to face us. He stepped forward with a smile on his face. So happy to meet you. I laughed harder than needed. He pointed to his eyes. Ya smiled and extended his hand. I also extended my gratitude, and he merely smiled and placed a hand on his chest. Then his eyes gazed over to May and whistled loudly. Wow, you're so beautiful. What's your name? He asked. Then he remembered about the language barrier, and he asked again. May lowered her blushing cheeks and answered with a smile. His smile brightened. May's cheeks blushed even more, and she had no words to say as Dee came to grab her arm. The house was situated on a hill with a view of Vien's mountains, and I had never been to a place like this. It took my breath away, and pretty much everyone else's as well. Tai showed us around the home, which had 4 bedrooms, and Dee and May took the bedroom with a view of the mountain. Ya and I bunked up together with one room, and Tai took the one on the top floor by himself. After getting situated in our rooms and unpacking, I came downstairs to find Dee outside picking the wildflowers. I joined her and plucked a handful to give to her. She asked with a huge grin on her face. Nodding my head, I replied, Ê Dee, cái này tại từ tố nó u hở đã chỉ ở nhà nó muốn nhia tôi yêu tay lúc chơi trong linh nó nè. Nếu chỉ là hai nàng kề muốn nhia trong nhia sớm mà. Cái bọn nhia cái tụi nó mòn thế nào lọ. I watched as her face turned 3 shades of red, and although she pretended to be unattracted to him, something inside told me she was definitely feeling some sort of emotion toward him. Nhia lì của nhia cái thế sớm mà. Although she answered with this, I felt she wasn't truthful. Her actions told me another story, and the jealousy I felt raging inside of me was about to spill out. Especially when Tai came out and took her hand without pausing to ask and pulled her in for a hug. It was the kind of a hug that their entire bodies touched, and not like the kind where only their upper bodies were close to another. Tai said as he turned toward me. May and Ya came out just as he asked this question, and Tai turned toward May with a grin that showed he cared more about her than needed. May, Gasanarachi, he asked. May, blushing, replied in a softer voice, Guchipao. He suddenly came to grab her and pulled her toward him. Okay, Ganakumutokge. Kaya kuzo so yan the gosh kanyarachi. Gutilipo hadia, Kayaritunija. Moo. And he tugged her hand toward the small path leading to a forested area, where the 3 of us followed, but a distance behind to give the 2 of them privacy. Ya said as he trailed behind them. I asked. Tua thiam, ta shi yo yamohalu tili toa. Chirike yingani tusa. As Dee crossed over the small log, her skirt caught into the end of the tree stump, and she gasped as she lost her balance. Both Ya and I reached out together, and each one caught her arm. She smiled and shoved us off as she walked ahead, and we both glared at one another. The deep truth that no one was able to hide was beginning to make its way to the surface. Ya walked on ahead, and I followed, reaching where Tai and May had stopped to catch their breath. The wind was much breezier here, and it was cooler as well. May put her hands around herself, and Tai removed his top shirt to wrap around her shoulders. Shocked by his actions, May's face again blushed, and she lowered her eyes to the ground. Before I could remove mine for Dee, Ya beat me to it, and Dee gave him a gentle smile as she pushed her arms through the sleeves and pulled his shirt closer around her body. Dee cried as she came to grab May's arm. The two looked out over the scenic top as Tai came to stand beside me and Ya, his eyes looking at May without blinking. Tao, 跟也没了咯, Ya asked him. Smiling, Tai replied, She's beautiful. 跟也呢? Nya, 你是他呢吧? Shaking my head, I replied, 没人够你的模色. At the mention of the word sister, I saw Ya's head perk up and turn toward the sight of Dee. The two of us were fighting an invisible battle, and we both knew it. This was going to get ugly, because I knew I couldn't let Dee go, and I knew he wouldn't either. That night, after dinner, Tai returned to the city to pick up some supplies for tomorrow. He'd asked May to go with him, but she politely declined and used exhaustion as an excuse. As soon as he left, though, she broke into tears at Dee from fear of Tai. She was not used to the attention, and it scared her while Dee laughed endlessly. I watched the two women laugh and joke quietly in the living room as Ya sat in front of me with his thumbs twirling. Kumupula, I said without a second thought. A little while after I had turned off the light in the bedroom, I heard May's voice telling everyone good night as she came to the bedroom she shared with Dee. This left only Ya and Dee in the living room, and it brought out a deep burning sensation across my chest. I shoved the covers off me and walked quietly to the door. As my hand reached for the knob, I heard what sounded like soft whispering, and I stopped. Then I heard a soft bid goodnight, and I heard Ya's voice say loud enough a returned well-wish for sweet dreams. I stepped back as I heard Dee walk to the bedroom, and I headed back to the bed. What had happened?
I wonder where are you now? Wonder where are you now? Wonder where are you now? Would you know my name? Would you know it and did you feel the same? Wonder where are you now? Wonder where are you now? It's too late now, 'cause I'm growing old, but I need you to deal with my sorrow. Just a memory, just a broken frame, and I know that I have no one else to blame. Did you make it? Did you break free? Did you manage to be who you wanna be? Maybe somewhere you think about me too.
May. I knew she was hiding something, and it was already making my heart bound with jealousy. I'd seen the way she'd acted around Ya, and I knew she wanted him. She was using her beauty to gain control over him, and he liked it. So did she. I purposely bid them good night first, and I overheard them speaking like lovers in the dark. When she came to slip in between the sheets beside me, I could smell him on her. All my life, I had to fight against Dee for everything. She was prettier, well-versed in words, and she was always the one who got everything. I was always chosen last and given the leftovers. I knew from the beginning that Ya was mine. He was everything I wanted, and when he mentioned the oath to us, I agreed, because I knew it would keep Dee away from him. I knew she secretly liked him because of how she'd wear her skirts and how she'd acted around him. It wasn't hard to see, but he belonged to me, and if I couldn't have him, then neither could she. Right now, the oath kept both of us from getting him, which was good, but I knew that she had been doing the dirty with him. Dee, I said in the dark as she snuggled beside me. She groaned and pulled the covers over her head. I heard her soft pretending of snoring that she was sleeping. I rolled over to my side, and then I heard her get off the bed. I waited until she tiptoed to the door, and I peeked out from under the covers to see the door opening. Ya stood outside waiting for her as the two held hands and walked out. Anger filled me, and I sat up in bed, my shoulders huffing in pain from being lied to. I slowly and quietly walked out, following the sound of their whispering outside. I rounded the corner, and there on the grass, lying beneath a half-naked Ya, was Dee, allowing him to do everything to her body, like a lover did to the one he couldn't wait to devour. I was consumed with anger, and I barged in as the both of them shrieked, and Ya stood up, covering Dee as much as he could with his arms. I cried. Ya cried as he covered his shaking Dee with his shirt. He buttoned his pants quickly and stood up. Dee stood up and pulled the shirt around herself. She dropped her jaw opened and laughed. And before I knew it, I cried, Ya walked forward to me. May, Dee laughed loudly. Ya turned to her. Tears came to my eyes, and I nodded my head. I wasn't prepared when Dee came rushing toward me. She grabbed my throat, and I felt her nails scratch my flesh, drawing blood. When Ya grabbed her and pulled her aside, I managed to slap her in the face. The commotion brought Jay out to stop us, and he noticed the way how Ya and Dee were dressed. No, he asked in confusion. I turned to him, and tears came streaming down my face. Jay, the two of them lowered their faces as I turned and started walking toward the house. I made it inside the house and rushed to the bedroom where I slept. I switched the light on and grabbed the small duffel bag I'd carried with me today. As I reached to unzip it, the lights went out, and when I turned around, a figure walked in, and the warm blood that oozed from my neck told me I was about to die. Thank you for tuning in. Chapter 3 will be out shortly.
오늘의 날씨 일기예보는 맑음 햇살 밝은 오후 무작정 어딘가 향하는 발걸음 너와 자주 걷던 거리 어쩌면 너무 익숙해져 버린 습관과 같던 매일 너랑 기억에 갇혀 살아 차라리 빗물이 rain. Yeah, 하염없이 비가 내려 두 뺨이로 이렇게 맑은데 차라리 빗물이라고 불러대면 마음 편할 텐데. 그래 나도 언젠간 너처럼 다 잊을게. 처음부터 우린 없었던 일. 환하게 웃을게. 비가 그치면 남김없이 쏟아내리면 남김없이 쏟아내리면 잊을 수 있을걸 지울 수 있을걸 잊을 수 있을걸 지울 수 있을걸 잊을 수 있을걸 지울 수 있을걸 잊을 수 있을걸 지울 수 있을걸. 내린 날씨 애기에 보는 맑음 햇살 밝음